LinkedIn News.
This cracks me up. A friend of mine, I live in New York City, so a friend of mine was like, I'm going to go shopping for apartments because I really want one with outdoor space. So 6 months go by, I hadn't seen her, so I saw her and I was like, oh, how's the apartment hunting going? And she goes, I gave it up. And I said, why? You sounded so excited about it. And she said, as I told my real estate broker, I thought I wanted outdoor space. I actually want a husband. And I'm like, good to identify.
Those are completely different.
But you see how you could be confused in your own mind. And you're like, if I had outdoor space,
I'd just be happier.
I would just be happier. And it's like, but identify the problem.
That's Gretchen Rubin, best-selling author of The Happiness Project, and her newest book, Secrets of Adulthood. And this is Everyday Better. Stay tuned for my conversation with Gretchen about how to make hard decisions. It's our last episode in the Back to School for Adults series. Don't forget to hit that follow button to get new episodes of our show every week. And if you want to hang out with me more, you can find me on socials. Finally, if you like this conversation, I have a favor to ask of you. Leave us a review wherever you're listening so we can keep bringing you more conversations that you love. Hey everyone, from LinkedIn News, this is Everyday Better, a show about the tools you need to create positive change in your mindset, your work, and every other area of your life. I'm Leah Smart, LinkedIn senior editor and a certified professional coach, and I help people become better versions of themselves one day at a time. So every week, I sit down with a trusted voice so that together we can explore how to take small steps toward big changes, the kind we plan for, strive toward, or never saw coming. So I am what today's guest, happiness expert Gretchen Rubin, calls a maximizer when it comes to decision making, which means I want to know every possible option and every likely outcome so I can make sure I make the best decision. Oh, and also I don't want any regrets and I don't want any FOMO. But as we're about to hear, regret is actually unavoidable and more information doesn't always make for better decisions or happier outcomes. This year, Gretchen released a book full of wisdom from her life and her research, and it's called Secrets of Adulthood. Today on the show, I'm going to talk with her about one of the foundational things that I believe we should have learned when we were becoming adults, but we really didn't, which is how do we make our own decisions and do it well? And any decision, big or small, like what task do I focus on today, or do I get my master's or stay at my job? Now, it wouldn't be fair to tell you only to trust your gut, and it also wouldn't be fair to say make a pro and con list and go with whatever has the most pros. So how do you pick between one thing and another, especially when the stakes seem really high? Gretchen is going to share some hard-won tips and a few reality checks for all of us. And if you're a maximizer like me, our goal is to borrow from the opposite style called the satisficer. They make a decision that's good enough, they move on, and turns out they have less regret and they're happier because their goal isn't always the best possible option. It's to be content and keep it pushing. So open that notes section on your phone and make sure you get all of this down. I want to start with the fact that you've written this book about adulthood.
Yes.
And I laughed when I heard about it because I'm like, well, when do we even become adults? And I spent some time a few years ago researching that and finding that the brain doesn't actually fully develop till you're in your late 20s. And so when you're 18 and you're an adult, you really are still a child.
Right. But I think a lot of people don't feel like adults. I mean, I remember my father said he didn't feel like an adult until both of his parents had died.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, now I feel like an adult. But I mean, he was in his 50s or 60s. I think that we only have adults when we're little. And we think that the grown-ups know everything and they know the answers and they got it under control. And then you get to be that age and you realize oh my gosh, everybody's just making it up as they go along. Nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not the adult the way I thought that people were adults. But there are lessons that we learn with time and experience. Right. And that's what this book was about, was what do you pick up along the way? And can you help other people by talking about those lessons?
Did you have a moment when you were looking around and going, where are the adults, and realized it was you?
Oh, constantly. Constantly. Yeah. Where you're like, isn't there somebody who's in charge of this?
Right.
And you're like, I guess that's me.
That's me somehow.
Yes. Or I remember I had a moment when I did feel like sort of a grown-up and a mother when I was throwing a surprise party for my father's birthday, milestone birthday. And so I had a big flower arrangement delivered. And I heard my daughter say, my mommy is having a flower party. And I thought, I am now the mommy.
I
I
am
am
mommy having
the
a
one
flower-
having the party. I am
Oh
having
my
a flower party.
God.
And that's probably the most adult. But I have to say, the most time in my life when I felt adult, when I felt sophisticated and in command and like, I have figured this world out, was when I was a senior in high school. And it's
Oh
kind
my
of been
gosh.
downhill ever since then.
Hasn't it?
Because then I was like, I've got this figured out. And then it's like, whoa, then you step into a big, big world.
Big world.
And you start all over again.
Do you, I mean, so are there things, it's hilarious you're talking about senior in high school because I was thinking about the fact that like, how is it possible that a 17-year-old,
Yeah.
18-year-old has to make one decision
Yes.
if you are choosing to go to
Yes.
school or not?
Yeah, yes.
That is
So
so impactful. That is going to, listen, we could all say that everything happens for a reason and all things do
Yeah.
work out. But at the same time, in the
Mhm.
moment,
yes.
especially where we are now, people are telling you that this is one of the most important decisions you will ever make in your life is to
Mhm.
choose what you do next after school. And we are literally children. What do you, as you think about that moment, wish that you had been taught?
Well, a couple of things. One is sometimes when choices are very hard to make, it's because they're not very different. And so if neither one is the wrong choice, then neither one is the right choice. And so you're picking, and so then you don't know what the consequences are, but they are not knowable. So it's not like you can cogitate yourself into figuring out which one is the better decision.
Right.
And so sometimes that takes the pressure off. Another thing is sometimes we need to make a decision and make it work. You are the one who is creating the situation. And a choice becomes the right choice, something like college, because you go and you make your friends and you find the professors and you have the adventures and the experiences. And so it becomes the right choice because of what you bring to it. It's not like it was the right choice in some kind of objective way. Another thing to remember, and this is something that I have to remind myself a lot when I'm sort of choosing between an apple and an orange, is that sometimes I think we have the idea that if we think hard enough about a question, a decision, or we do enough research or we talk to enough people, that we can make a choice where we are 100% confident in the rightness of that choice. But a lot of times when we're struggling with a decision, it's because one is an apple and one is an orange. And if you live on the East Coast, you can't live on the West Coast. And so either choice will bring unavoidable regret. So to think that you can avoid regret, you just waste your energy. It's kind of like, well, which one do you choose? Understanding that you may always wish that you could have also had that other life. I think that takes some of the pressure off because this idea that you can have no regrets, well, you may. You just may always say like, oh, that would have been really cool. I would have loved to have done that. But if I'd done that, I couldn't have done this. And this is what I chose.
Oof. There's so much, when I think about adulting, it's like the accountability that you have to live in with the choices that you make.
Yes.
And how difficult that can be and how
Oh my gosh,
paralyzing.
James Baldwin, I can't get his beautiful wording, but he says something like, people pay for the decisions that they make, and they pay for them very simply with the lives they lead.
Oh my gosh.
And you're just like, whoa.
You're like, what do you mean? I'm like, back to the books. I'm going to research everything.
But on the other hand, but the two things are true. It's
Yeah.
like on the one hand, everything matters and we want to be very intentional and very purposeful. And I'm very wary of like drifting into a decision because, not deciding is a decision, not choosing is a choice. Often we are making a decision even if we are kind of just drifting. But on the other hand, we can always change. Enormous change in a very short time is possible. We're not locked in. We're more free than we think often, and we can feel that we're more trapped or that our decisions are more limited than they actually are. And so I think one thing for people to remember is like, well, could I undo this decision? If it doesn't work out, could I change my mind later?
Yeah.
Both things are true.
I mean, I think about the fact that like the possible selves, we've been talking about that a bit. And this idea of the possible selves that die as you make each decision.
It's painful.
Yeah.
It
and
is
like,
painful.
how do you mourn that, I guess? And then I say I guess because I'm still not even sure how I've done it. But it's you kind of mourn that and then you move into this other self. But the idea that you can go back and change means that your possible selves don't necessarily die. You had a big shift in your career, which I think is really important as we talk about like possible future selves.
Right.
You started off going to law school.
I did.
And you were on your way to a pretty what would have been a probably really successful career in law, and you made a shift. But what I first want to know is like you chose law for a reason. What?
Oh, that's a good question.
Great.
So I did exactly what I said you shouldn't do, which is I drifted into it. I did not intentionally say, oh, I want to be a lawyer, therefore I will go to law school. I said things to myself like, I don't know what else to do with myself. It's a good education. It's good preparation for a lot of different things. I'm good at reading and writing. I'm good at like following directions. My father's a really happy lawyer, so I kind of get it. And because I didn't know what else to do, I was like, okay, I'll go to law school. And what I say now is going to law school is excellent preparation for becoming a lawyer. If you're just saying like, well, I don't know what else to do with myself, I would think very long and hard about it.
Something
it
else,
worked out really, really well for me. I'm so happy that I got to clerk for Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.
Yes.
I had an amazing experience. But it's long and it's hard and it's expensive and it's grueling and it's not something that you just lightly do. And I'm glad that I did it, but I did it for the wrong reasons. I just drifted into it because it was easier than like sort of really searching my soul and asking myself what I wanted to do.
You had a quote that I love that was, I'd rather fail as a writer than succeed as a lawyer. And that moment was like, oof.
Yes.
When I saw that, tell me more about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when I was working as a lawyer, I got an idea. I became absolutely preoccupied with an idea and was doing tons of research and writing. And I always do that. I've done that since I was a little kid, like get really interested in something, take a lot of notes. And then finally I thought, this is the kind of thing that a person would do if they were going to write a book. I thought, maybe I can write that book. So I got a book called How to Write and Sell Your Nonfiction Book Proposal, and I just started following the directions. The moment came where, my husband and I decided that we would not stay in D.C. He was also working in D.C. I was in D.C. We would move back to New York. And the question was, would I get a job in law and write on the side the way I had been doing? Or would I really try to make this my full-time job and sort of say, I'm really going to try to be a writer and put all my energy into trying to get an agent? And that's when I had the idea, like, well, I would rather fail as a writer than succeed as a lawyer. And this looks like the most opportune moment. Like, I haven't taken another job. I was afraid if I took another legal job that I would just sort of get so pulled into that track that it would be too painful to step off. I was like, this is the moment. This is the open moment. Let me take my shot now. And if it doesn't work out, then I can reevaluate what I want to do. But this is the time to try. And that book became Power, Money, Fame, Sex, A User's Guide, which was my first book, my first published book. So it all worked out.
So how did you're at this point, and this is, I think, throughout your life, you're presented with these big decisions. Part of, I don't know, it seems like there's so many of those decisions that come up in your 20s up until like your mid-30s.
Oh, throughout your life too.
And great. I'm in my like mid-late 30s. So
but there are times where, you feel like they're coming at you fast and furious.
Yeah, and you feel unprepared, I think, also for a lot of them. But in this moment, you're like, okay, we have this option. I can leave DC. I can choose another job in law, or I can choose to pursue an agent and go into writing. What are the steps that you used to really make that decision?
I wouldn't have used these words at the time because I hadn't thought of it yet. But what I was doing was to choose the bigger life. Because sometimes when we have to make a decision, when we have to decide between an apple and an orange, you can write out the pros and cons on a legal pad, all you want, and it just feels like they balance. And so you're like, well, how do I choose? Like, should I stay in the big city or should I move back to my hometown? Should I go back to graduate school or should I keep working? Should I get a dog or not? All these questions, because a lot of times there's really good arguments pro and con. And what I have found for myself, and so many people have told me that this is like can be an absolutely clarifying question, like instantaneously clear which one is better, is you say, choose the bigger life for you. And like, not everybody would answer the same way. For you, what represents the bigger life? And for me, 1,000%, being a writer was the bigger life for me. Now, somebody else might be like, that wouldn't be the bigger life. The bigger life would be to be a lawyer and to be doing this and to be doing that and be involved in this and be part of a big organization or start my own law firm. Like, there's a million ways somebody could have had their own conclusions about what the bigger life was. But for me, it was obvious. And so I think it can, if you're stuck, that can often be really, really helpful because it's what strikes a chord with you. Because in the end, there's a limit to how much we can consult with other people about really big decisions.
Right.
In the end, they can't
make it for you.
They can't make it for you. And I think what's nice about this too is sometimes it's helpful to put things in kind of like, say, if you could do it magically, because that allows our minds to be freer. Like, if you could magically get rid of one bad habit, what would that be? Well, then your mind could pick something
that seems wild
that
off
seems
the wall,
wild,
and I could
right,
never get rid of that.
Because you might not even want to articulate that to yourself, because once you say it, you might feel like, oh, do I have to do it? But if I say, you can just do it magically, it kind of frees our imagination, and like we can because I think one of the things that's so hard to know ourselves, like, what do we want? I don't know.
Right.
You know, what kind of person am I? I have no idea. You think, I just hang out with myself all day long.
Right.
Of course I know myself, but it's really hard. And so sometimes there are indirect ways to reveal our preferences and our desires and our aptitudes and our wishes. And so I think choose the bigger life often is, it puts it in a way that allows people to see a decision in a way that's truer to what they want.
So I want to ask you, what's the synonym for bigger? Because I think especially in the States and in our culture, bigger means I have more money, I'm more well-known, I have fame, I have these things. It's not what you're pointing to.
But right? I think that's what you're thinking bigger is. I don't think
Maybe it's just me.
No,
yeah.
I don't know that bigger comes with all of that. So here, I'll give you an example. So I was talking to somebody who was saying, okay, my husband and I, like, we met in college, we came from the same hometown, a little hometown, and then we moved to the big city. I think she was in Chicago. Both of them were in Chicago. And she's like, it's really exciting and fun, and we have all these great job opportunities. But now we're thinking about starting a family. And so the question is, should we move back to our hometown where we have all this family, but then our job opportunities are going to be more limited, and like we love all the culture and the excitement and whatever. And you're like, yeah, like those are big pros and big cons. Like, how do you make that decision? So I said to her, what for you is the bigger life? And she said, moving back to our hometown. That's the bigger life for us. Because she said, like, that's like, life will be easier. We'll be connected with this big family. Like that's like the vibe we want. And so I don't think bigger always means like more fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like what rings true for you. But
I think of it as like the creator economy, right? Like it's a huge economy worth potentially trillions of dollars, right? So most creators are going, I want to choose the bigger life, which means I can make money doing the thing.
Yes.
That piece.
Okay, but this is what I will say. Okay, I'm going to take back what I just said.
Okay, great.
Actually, vocabulary is really important. And if bigger doesn't have the right ring to you, if it has all these associations, like you're saying, like, but I don't want to be drawn into the life of like chasing likes and constantly trying to like, you know, double my whatevers every year over year. Choose a different word. Like, what would be a word that you think might capture that? Choose the deeper life.
As soon as you said what she chose, for me, richer was the word. Like, there was just this like, oh my God. I was like, of course she chose that. She had all of this family, and there was something like, it makes me like feel warm to imagine that. So
for you, I think this is exactly right. Like, you can sort of see the idea and say, okay, bigger doesn't have the right associations for me. I'm going to say richer, or I'm going to say deeper. Or I'm going to see, but I wouldn't get into something like jargony or like, you know, blah, blah. The more fulfilling and purposeful, blah, blah, blah.
It's so clean
to
you
say
want the bigger, the richer. Immediately I knew too, as you're describing.
Or maybe somebody even is something like, I love salt. I love salt as a concept. Salt is amazing. Choose the saltier life. It's like, find a way to adapt it to yourself, make it work for you. And then it's even more powerful because it has unique associations because it's coming out of your imagination.
Choose the bigger life, the richer life, the saltier life. For Gretchen, this is at the center of decision-making. But my question is, will choosing the bigger, richer, saltier life make us happier? So when we come back, Gretchen and I are going to get into that. And we're back with best-selling author of The Happiness Project, Gretchen Rubin. As you're describing the steps in what you do, and you ask this question of the bigger life, is that the same as understanding what will make us happy or figuring out what will make us happy? Or is there a different process for going, all right, this is what will actually make me happy? And I only know it because I know myself. And like,
Okay, what you're talking about is called hedonic forecasting, which is, are we good at anticipating what is going to make us happy in the future? Okay, I give you 2 guesses. Are we good at this or are we not good at this?
I'm going, we're not good
at
this.
We're not good at Yes, you are correct. We are not good at this.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons we're not good at this is we don't spend enough time thinking about it. One really good thing to do if you are struggling with a decision like that, and this is so obvious that a lot of people discount it, which is ask somebody who has made that decision if they're happy with it. Because people are kind of more alike than we think. Ask people who are in that situation and say, how has it been for you? Not that you have to totally be guided by it, but it can be a really good source of information that a lot of times people are like, well, I'm so unique and special. Who knows?
No one will understand.
No one will understand. It's like, yeah, you know what? A lot of people have a lot of the same responses.
I would immediately go, well, just because they did it, they might not have the same values that I do. They might not have this. They might not have that. I need to find all the similarities.
Of course. But listen to what they say and think about, well, what do I think? Here's another one that I was just thinking about. Sometimes if you're not sure that someone is going to be honest with you about their opinion, like maybe they don't want to seem disloyal to their company or for whatever reason, they don't want to be too forthright. If you don't say like, what do you think? You would say, what do most people think? What do most people who work here say about it? Because people will tend to answer from their own experience. You know what I mean? But then they don't sort of feel as on the hook for it. So you might get a little bit more of a straightforward answer if you frame it that way rather than what do you think?
Right. Well, and then, you're not as accountable to saying, oh my God, I told this person this one thing and it was me that told them and now I'm going to get in trouble or they're going to make a decision based on just me.
Right, exactly. So again, as we're trying to bring more information, that can be useful.
I want to talk about information gathering because I am this person. I am research all the things, gather all the information.
It's exhausting.
So I was on maternity leave, and while on maternity leave, instead of working, obviously I wasn't working anymore. So I put all that attention onto all baby things I needed to buy and own. And I found a website called Baby Gear Lab where I got to look at every item and compare items and sit on it at 3 a.m. and decide which one I would put in my cart on Amazon and then take another. Thankful for my family for being open to this. I also did thoroughly enjoy it. However,
interesting.
Well, I think I partially thoroughly enjoyed not making a choice because I wanted so badly to have the certainty to make the right choice and not have to get something in the mail or take her to a daycare or whatever that was the wrong choice.
Yes.
You said something that I loved, which is, and I was like, God, I feel seen. You said, do you need more time or do you need to just make a decision?
Yes.
Like, it's so hard, right? I could say, I need more time. I need more time to research. I have to ask more people. But in reality, there's a freedom to just choosing.
Yeah, and if you're enjoying it, then it's fine. It's when it becomes exhausting that you want to say, or if you're using it to procrastinate because you just don't want to,
how do you know?
Push the button. I think I think if you say like, or like a lot of times I'll put off making a decision, like thinking that I need to talk to somebody, like I need to consult with somebody. And I'm like, they're not going to tell me no, it's just, I'm procrastinating by pretending like I need more information. That's what I do. Now since you are like, love research, now you might be a maximizer when it comes to decision making. So some people are satisficers and sometimes
I'm a maximizer.
Okay.
Yeah.
So satisficers are people who like, they have their criteria and that criteria may be very demanding, but once it's met, they make a decision. It's like, this bike has all the things I was looking for. I will buy this bicycle. Maximizers want to make the totally best decision kind of on taking every single possible factor into account. And so they need to think about every single thing and make a decision from every single option. And I think of this because like I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri. And like if you wanted to buy like a white button-down blouse and try it on in a store, there was only so many stores you go to. You can go try on every single white blouse. You live in New York City the way I do now.
Right.
That's the rest of your life. and what's surprising is you would think that maximizers would be more pleased with their decisions in the end because they've investigated them so thoroughly and been so intentional in their decisions. But what the research shows is that actually satisficers are more satisfied with their decisions because maximizers will like reopen the question. Did I take everything into account? Was there something I overlooked? Should I have checked this one more website? Whereas satisficers are like, this is what I wanted. I got what I wanted. I'm done. So sometimes it's just good to know which way you lean. And if you are a maximizer, maybe try to say to yourself, okay, these are the 10 things that I think are important to me. Once I see all these 10, then I'm going to give myself a limit and I'm not going to keep looking because that analysis paralysis can be real.
I'm curious about like kind of connecting the dots between for me, it will be choose the richer life.
Yes.
And this small little thing of buying something, other things that are big, which are, choosing a job, choosing a city, like you said, getting a dog.
Right. Yeah.
It takes me back to like, well, what are my values? Because I was like, well, I should be researching the best things and I should be finding them. And I am a maximizer, but how do I become a satisficer? And I was like, well, am I wasting the time I would use doing something else I value more when I'm sitting looking for all these things? And I value my sleep and I value my time with my family.
Okay. So if you're struggling with that, these are some ways to cut that short or to limit it in a useful way. One is deadlines. I'm going to make a decision by tonight at 10 p.m. At 10 p.m., I'm going to just say I'm done and I'm going to pick the best one. Or by the end of the week. Another one is setting limits. So I'm going to look at 5 sites, but not 15 sites. I'm not going to consult every possible person. I'm just going to consult, a limited number. And then another one is trusted authority. And so trusted authority is like you finding this website that you're finding to be very reliable. And you might just say like, if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me. And I'm just going to say that I'm not going to go outside. Or like, let's say you're trying to think about, should I get this kind of software? And so you find somebody who you think like, you really trust their judgment. They do their research. Clearly research is important to you. And you're like, I know that this person values research the way I did. They made a decision. If it's good enough for them, it's probably good enough for me. I don't need to like reinvent the wheel every time. And so with limits, deadlines, and trusted authorities, often just an appeal to efficiency. Like, this is not a good use of my time. I want to spend 5 hours a week investigating baby gear, but no more than 5 hours because it's starting to crowd out other things that are more important to me. And like really maybe timing it, and saying like, I'm only going to give myself this much time because sometimes these things can crowd out other values, as you say.
There's something that I want to highlight that's a larger decision that reminded me of something I last year, which was I got into a master's program.
Yes.
And I had been wanting to do this master's program. And I was waffling back and forth for so long. My husband was like, make a choice.
Yeah.
And for me, the master's program was really important. The idea of getting, additional education, of, shifting maybe a little bit of how credible I felt in my career. I mean, all of these things mattered and they're all oriented toward work, which is really important to me. And I had been waffling so much and I was analyzing, I was talking to people. I mean, I talked to the program director. I mean, I did everything.
Yeah.
And finally I just said, June 8th, I have to decide.
Okay,
and
so you set a deadline.
And I didn't even know what I was doing.
Okay.
But that actually forced me to do it, and I turned it down.
Interesting.
And I will say, when I turned it down, I didn't feel like, oh, I'm so glad I turned that down.
Right.
I felt...
Because you had unavoidable regret. Because both ways had their appeal. And to do one was not to do the other.
To do the other.
So I think that's exactly why I think to expect to feel like an ecstasy of, I made the right decision, we often don't feel that way. Because there's the regret of the path not taken.
I will say the next morning I found out I was pregnant, which was hilarious because I would not have been able to do that master's program.
Interesting.
So I think that there was something for me, like I knew somewhere inside of myself, and that's probably part of the reason.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a few days ago I discovered there was another option. We're talking about possible selves.
Sure.
I use ChatGPT and I love it for learning because I love knowledge and research. So I said to ChatGPT, well, what kinds of other masters could I look at? Like, I really don't want to lose this possible self. And it answered me, and I went back and forth with it and found something I was really interested in that was local, still a really strong program, a really amazing school, and much more convenient for me. This took over a year for me to feel this sense of like, oh, I've found something that could potentially fill this hole, if that makes sense.
Yes.
I want to know, like, I mean, I want to know what you make of that, right? There's the unavoidable regret, and then there's this big liminal space between.
Yeah, well, and your story points at something that's so important, and I'm so glad that you brought this into the conversation, which is we often default to a binary. It's just easier for our brains to say yes or no, do it or don't do it, stay or go. And actually, a lot of times it isn't just yes or no. There are many possible ways to do it. And I think you're like, no to this program, but are there other possibilities that I could achieve my aims in a way that would work for me? It's not yes or no. It's like, well, what are the other options that I hadn't considered?
Right.
Because a lot of times we don't stop and say, like, well, what are the things that are in between? And I think sometimes we state it very starkly for ourselves because we want to feel completely justified in our decision, or we don't want to feel the pain of like the of making the decisions. I remember talking to somebody who was saying like, well, this is my question. Do I stay in my dead-end job just out of sheer just being trapped by my need for security? Or do I throw it all away and live a life of freedom and possibility? And I was like, well, I think you know the answer because of the way because the way you stacked the question. But the fact was, this was somebody where he did not have the resources and the wherewithal to just like throw it all away. But I'm like, there is a big difference between staying stuck in your job and feeling like there's no future for you, and like throwing it all away. It's like, are there things in between? Are there ways you could take steps toward it in a more realistic way?
Sort of like how you were writing and you were
and so I did it by stages, and I'm like, so I did this and that, like I had overlapping. Now, I don't want to make it sound like it's always easy because sometimes these things aren't possible, but I think sometimes we do kind of present things to ourselves very starkly, but that's such a great example of how in the end you may have come up with something that's much, much better.
Maybe even better, right?
You know?
Where at the time I could not see that.
At the time you couldn't see it. Yeah.
You went through these stages of going from choosing the path of law to becoming a writer. What a lot of people don't see is like they know the Gretchen Rubin they know today. Like I remember the moment I saw the book, The Happiness Project, and I was like, oh my God. I think I was at an airport. I don't know what I was doing, but
great.
It was bright.
Fun.
It was fun. And I went, I want that now.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah. So I think about that, right? And like your name was then in my mind from that point on. However, you were you far before that point. And I think we also make these, I mean, maybe in the context of the choosing the bigger life, we make these assumptions about what the bigger life will lead to. But you've said that it took 10 years, right? For you to, okay.
No, people are like, oh, you were an overnight sensation. Right. I was like, no, after 10 years of writing.
Right. So if you call that overnight.
I had published, I think, 4 books by the time. I think The Happiness Project was either my 4th or 5th book.
You made an intrinsic decision that was about you, not about what would be rewarded from the outside.
Yeah. And you know, one thing that I was really lucky, and now I understand how lucky I was in that everybody around me who was close to me was very, very supportive of me taking a big risk. And I think that often the people around us, with all love and desire to protect, they don't want to see us risk failure. They don't want to see us feel disappointed or rejected. They want us to be on a safe path. And so they try to dissuade us from doing something that they think is risky. And I'm very persuaded by the people in my life. Like, that's just me. And so I was very fortunate that they were all like, oh, you have all these legal credentials. Why don't you throw it all away and start from nothing? Like, I literally, I didn't have a clip. I didn't have a short story. I had nothing. I was just like, I've got a great idea. I think this would be a good book. And they're like, go for it. So that was really lucky. But one thing that my father said to me that was very meaningful, and it's funny because it was very comforting to me, but when I report it to people, a lot of times people say like, oh no, that sounds very undermining. But I'm like, no, it was not undermining. So my father said to me, well, you may not hit it out of the park the first time, but you'll get there. And what that told me was I didn't have to stake whether my decision was right or wrong on the fate of that first book. It wasn't, because sometimes people will do that. They're like, this is my shot. This is it.
This is it. Yeah.
And there are many.
How heavy that is.
It's so heavy. And a lot of times there's things that we can't control. And what I say to myself and to everybody I know who's a writer, and this is true in a lot of professions, is there are many ways for a book to succeed. A book could sell a lot of copies. A book could give you enormous intellectual satisfaction. A book could lead you to a collaboration with somebody who's going to be like really important in your future life. A book could point you toward a different career that you'd never really thought of before. A book could get you speaking fees. A book could get you clients. I mean, there's so many ways for a book to succeed. There's so many ways for a college experience to succeed. There's so many ways for a vacation to succeed. There's so many ways that even a job that you didn't really like can actually have a lot of value to you. And so I think sometimes we get very focused on a single metric and think, okay, this is how I decide if it succeeded or failed. Whereas, sometimes it can succeed in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I love that. You might not hit it out of the park the first time, but you'll get there.
Yeah. And so that kind of took a lot of pressure off of me, because I was like, yeah, it's my first book.
I'm on my way.
I'm on my way. And then you can always reevaluate. I mean, maybe something fails and you're like, I don't care. I want to do it anyway. And that's information.
You are so practical. Do you have a sense of like gut or spirit that also guides you?
That is such a great question. I don't know that I do. I always feel like I have a sense of, I'm very led by just my sheer interest in something. So maybe that's what my gut is, just what my interest is. And if I'm interested in something, even if I don't understand why I'm interested in, I used to sort of fight that, because I would think, well, I'm playing hooky, or this isn't professional, that I'm just like allowing myself to go deep into some random subject. And now I'm like, a lot of times it ends up being important in some way. I don't always understand why I'm interested in something, but now I just sort of, any spark of enthusiasm, I really try to follow it.
You mentioned earlier the idea of being in a job that you don't like and something potentially being positive. So I think about people who are listening today that are going, for whatever reason, I'm doing something today that is my work, that takes up most of my time, that I don't love.
Yes.
I also cannot, just go
throw it all away
so that I can become happy. I have air quotes because I don't know that people even know what that means.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like, let's just say I feel like millennials were told we should blow up our lives for a long time. I can remember this period when I was starting work where it was like, all of these people were like, I blew up my life and I started over and I moved to India and I did this and now I'm the happiest person ever. And it felt really attractive. And as I've gotten older, I've recognized like, that's actually, for me, not the answer.
Yeah,
and oftentimes I think for a lot of us,
no, I agree,
not going to be the answer.
Yes.
I think it's how we show up in our lives. Like, what advice do you have for someone who's going, I can't blow up my life?
Sure. I think a really helpful thing, if you're saying to yourself, I really do not like this job, is to identify the problem. Because a lot of times we're in a situation and we have like a lot of feeling of like uneasiness or anxiety or resentment or whatever it might be. Boredom, but we don't know exactly why. And one of my secrets of adulthood is the place that hurts isn't always the place that's injured. And we can be very distracted and not really understand exactly what the problem is. So the first thing to do, and it's extraordinarily illuminating for helping you to make future decisions, and it also can point the way to making decisions in the present, is identify the problem. So is the problem with your job that you feel like your boss doesn't like you? Is your problem that half of your team got fired and now you're doing the work of 3 people, so you feel very overwhelmed? Do you feel like you don't have a friend at work? When they look at people who are happy at work, they're people who say they have a friend at work, somebody who has their back. Are you working at home and you're a super social person, so you feel like you're pining away because you're not getting the energy from other people that you need? Are you working so hard that it's crowding out other things like seeing your friends, your family, exercise? Are you allowing yourself to stay up so late at night that you're chronically exhausted, so you're dragging yourself through the day? All of these are things that might make somebody unhappy at work. Yep. They all have solutions. They all have strategies that you would use as you move through the future, but you can be very confused. And you might just think like, oh, I hate my job, but there's many reasons that you hate your job.
Right.
Which is your reason?
Right.
Because if you don't really figure it out, you might not correct for it in the next one. A friend of mine said she thought she really, really did not like being in a law firm, and then she realized it was because of the commute. It was just the commute was
It
so
wasn't
grueling.
the law firm.
It wasn't the law firm. It wasn't the work. It was just that the commute was putting so much pressure on her day that she was just sort of miserable all day long. Now, that's very different. So the solutions would be very different.
Right. I want to talk about, as we make our big decisions, you brought this up a little bit earlier, but regret.
Yes.
I love your concept of choose the bigger life. For me, choose the richer life.
Yes.
And
Like
for everyone
asterisk.
else, whatever that is.
Yeah, choose the blank.
Right,
Yeah.
keep it simple. But yes, choose the blank life. And at the same time, I don't know if you read or have heard Dan Pink talk about regrets of omission.
Oh my gosh, the book, The Power of
Right.
Regret, is
Yes.
amazing. His
Yes.
World Regret Survey is fascinating. You can like click on a place.
I've never done that.
Oh my gosh, you go on it
God.
and people have entered in their regrets, so you can just like see what people regret. It's just so fascinating.
So talk to me about regret, because I think
Yes.
that's what we're all trying to avoid when we make big decisions. I want to know what your thoughts are on that, on regret.
Well, regret is a painful emotion, but it is extremely instructive. And often when we think about regrets, it gives us a lot of information about our values, back to your point about wanting to live your values, and what we might do differently in the future. And so there's a lot of ways to you can anticipate regret. So you could say like let's say you're trying to make the habit of regular exercise. You could say like, if I come to the end of the year and I haven't made any progress towards that, how am I going to regret it? It's like, yes, I'm really going to regret it. And thinking about that regret can sometimes help us to make better decisions in the present. And then thinking back on the regrets we have can make us do better as we're thinking about going forward. Like when I was in college, I didn't do any extracurriculars, and I really regretted this. So when then I got to law school, I was like, okay, now I'm going to correct for that regret. I'm going to do a ton of extracurriculars, and it was such a great decision.
Oh, good.
But if I had sort of pretended to myself that I didn't regret that, or hidden it from myself and not acknowledged the pain of like, wow, I really missed a lot of opportunities to like have great experiences and make good friends. And like now I see it was a big part of the college experience. Like I was so focused on the academics, like I really missed something important. But then I was able to carry that forward.
So what did you sit with the like, oh crap, I did the wrong thing? You
Yeah.
have to sit with that grief
Well, and
a
I
little
missed
bit.
the opportunity, right?
Yeah.
It's like I didn't put myself out there. I think in Dan Pink's framework, it's a failure of boldness. I wish I had put myself out there. I wish I had taken the risks. I wish I had tried, even if I wasn't sure about. So I think regret can be very helpful.
Yeah, instructive.
Very
because
instructive.
then you used it to do the
Very
next thing.
instructive.
So what's like a final thing you say to people who are listening to us and are at the precipice of a huge, or what feels like a huge decision in their adult life?
Make a pros and cons list. Ask people in the situation, are they happy with their decision? And whatever for you represents the bigger life, the richer life, the deeper life, do what will take you there.
That was Gretchen Rubin, best-selling author of The Happiness Project and the new book, Secrets of Adulthood. If you liked this episode, make sure you check out last week's about optimism with mindfulness expert Case Kenny. You can find a link to that in the show notes, and give it a listen so you can let us know what you think. Everyday Better is a production of LinkedIn News. The show is produced by Emily Reeves and Ava Ahmadbegi. Asaf Gadron is our sound engineer. We get additional support from Alex Kutsiatsova and Mujib Merdad. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Maya Pope-Chappelle is director of content and audience development. Courtney Coop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is LinkedIn's editor-in-chief and vice president of content development. And I'm Leah Smart. Thanks for coming with me, and we'll see you next week.